Hi, everybody, and welcome to our session today. We're going to be focusing on the gut and gut health. And I've got a little presentation to share talking about gut health, and then be really happy to answer some questions for you afterwards. So just bear with me for a minute. So the gut is an interesting part of our body. It's one that we forget about in a way, in that there's such a lot going on in there. Maybe no one really told us over time, but we've actually got trillions of bacteria in the gut. And it's not just there to help us digest food, but it also plays an incredible part in our well-being. It's now thought that the gut is the equivalent of our second brain, and lots of illnesses are being associated with poor gut function, even things like Alzheimer's disease. So it's really important to make sure that your gut's in good shape. So we're going to start off with bloating, because so many women get bloated as they get to menopause and midlife, and sometimes can't get their clothes done up as a result of it. And it feels like a runaway train when you can't get your clothes done up. So the bacteria in your gut are, as I said, plenty. And it's really important to make sure that you've got as many good bacteria as you can and not get overwhelmed by the bad bacteria. So you've got a lot of good things going on in your gut, ideally, but there can also be some bad things that that need to be sorted out. So as I said, the research shows that things like diabetes, obesity, depression, even colon cancer are related to what's going on in your gut. And there are so many different kinds of bacteria. It's known as your microbiome. You might have heard that term, but there are just so many different kinds of bacteria. The bloating is something that comes about for a number of reasons. One is that we get trapped wind, we get gas, and that fills up our gut. Each of us get about 1.5 liters of gas a day, which is a lot. And that it can be smelly and embarrassing, depending on what's going on in our diet. If you are having constipation, which about 50% of women are at this stage in your life, then you've got stagnating stools in the bowel, and then that can get a bit smelly because of the stagnation. The lax muscles in your abdomen, which come about because of a lack of magnesium, can also contribute, because the gut actually starts at the back of your throat and goes right the way down to your tail, and you've got two groups of muscles that are meant to relax and contract rhythmically to get the motions from one end to the other. And when you've got a shortage of magnesium, it just goes into spasm, so you can't pass things easily. So that's another reason. If you've got more bad bacteria than good bacteria, that's going to be tricky in your gut, and that will all help. Some foods as well make you produce smelly wind, the sulfite wind, and different foods for different people. So you just need to be aware of that. And the trapped wind can be very painful. So and that can be embarrassing as well. So it's really important to make sure your diet is good for you, and doesn't necessarily mean it's good for someone else, but it's good for your gut. And it's all about the process of finding what really works for your gut and making sure that you have a good balance of the foods that are good for you, and that you maybe in the beginning, if you are in trouble with your gut, you go on a modified exclusion diet. And I'm happy to tell you more about that, and I help my patients with that, so that they get back in control of their gut. And we make sure that the food is getting digested as it goes through our small bowel and it passes through to the colon. If you've got food intolerances, that can be another thing that gives you really bad gas and wind. You need to make sure that you're not having too much sugar, because sugar is, the bacteria love the sugar and they gobble it up, and you get all sorts of fermentation going on inside the bowel, which is converted to gas. So that's another thing that you need to do. There are some foods that are harder to digest than others. So things like wheat and bran, particularly things like, some people can't tolerate things like raw onions and garlic, Jerusalem artichokes. Some people can't tolerate green leafy vegetables, the brassica family. Sometimes sweet corn goes in one end and out the other. You see the whole seed come out, the whole corn come out, the kernel. And it goes on and on. Some people can tolerate beans, other people can't. It's finding what works for you. And that's the key thing, really. The trick is finding the right diet for you. So for a start, you can make sure you're chewing your food well. So very often when we're eating food, we're not paying much attention to what we're doing, and we just kind of eat fast and swallow it. So chewing it well so that it's easier on your gut to be digested. Having smaller portions and taking time to relax after a meal is good. So even if you have got gut problems, it might be an idea on this modified exclusion diet to have just smaller meals rather than a big meal and give your gut a rest. Or you can do some juicing to start with and have some soups. If you are having beans, then soak them thoroughly and make sure that they are well hydrated before you eat them. And the sulfur-rich foods, things like bread, dried fruit is very often dipped in sulfur dioxide, and some squashes contain it too, as well as alcohol like wine and beer, cider, eggs as well, and onions. So those are things that can make the sulfite gas. And keeping sugar to a minimum. Things like ginger and peppermint tea are good digestive aids. So you can have those after a meal. You can either put some fresh chopped ginger in some hot water, let that cool down a bit, and then you can drink that, maybe with a lemon and ginger tea bag, or you can have some fresh mint or peppermint tea. And then doing a session of relaxation, particularly after a meal, that will help you to digest your food. And maybe if you have got trapped wind, to massage your tummy, massage your lower back, and just maybe lay down with a hot water bottle until the gas comes out and you feel better. Making sure you've got plenty of probiotics in your diet is important. You can take supplements of good probiotics, and there are different supplements available. We also use probiotic food. So sometimes you can get yogurt with probiotics, and also cottage cheese sometimes has some. You have to look on the labels to make sure that you're getting the right things. And you can also take some digestive enzymes as well to help digest your food. Sometimes we're depleted in the digestive enzymes that we need. And so taking a digestive enzyme with your food can help aid your digestion, so it stops the wind. Constipation is where, as I said before, your muscles go into spasm, and lack of magnesium, which we found to be in short supply in up to 80% of women in the 5 studies that we undertook. And that means that the gut transit time becomes longer. So in other words, the time it takes for the food to go from the back of your throat to your tail becomes longer because it's stagnating in your gut because the muscles aren't working. And then some people get what they describe as rabbit droppings, and it's really hard for them to pass. If you don't pass your motions every day easily, then you need to do something. And there are lots of things that you can do. As I said, over 50% of the women that we see and in our surveys have got constipation at the time of menopause, and women are more predisposed to constipation than men. Things that cause it, well, first of all, having low levels of estrogen or estrogen as the ovaries stop producing it, a lack of usually fruit and vegetable fiber, lack of fluid is another thing, magnesium deficiency, as I said, stress in our lives, which is plentiful for most of us, can make us tense, and that makes the muscles go into spasm. Having tea, ordinary tea, can be constipating. Some drugs like painkillers are too. And lack of exercise. If you're not feeling well and you're more sedentary, then you're more likely to be constipated. You know what? It'll do the now. Sorry, if someone's, could you just mute yourself if you're not on mute, please, so we don't have any background. Thank you. And then for constipation, making sure that you have time to go to the bathroom and relax, and maybe having a hot drink to stimulate your gut. Doing some exercise also might help. Taking organic flax seeds, golden flax seeds are brilliant because they're a great source of naturally occurring estrogen or estrogen, but they also swell in your motions, and they help to make it slippery so that the motions slide through rather than getting impacted. Keeping tea off the menu, ordinary tea, because that's constipating. Taking something like magnesium citrate to gut tolerance. will help get rid of constipation as well, and making sure you're really well hydrated, so plenty of fluid. And again, exercising, massage, and doing a session of daily relaxation. All of those things are going to help your gut to function normally. And try and have a normal time of the day. Organic prunes are another good thing that you can use. If you have 5 or 6 prunes a day, that also helps to keep your bone mass nice and strong, but they're also good in your gut. And again, make sure if you're going to get them that they're organic and that they haven't been dipped in sulfur dioxide, because that can give you smelly wind. And keeping, as well as having the flax seeds and plenty of magnesium, keeping really well hydrated. So they're the kind of 3 things, and probably avoiding things like wheat and bran and tea, which all can make you feel more constipated. And if you are feeling stressed, then trying to manage the stress so that it doesn't actually get you out of the driving seat in terms of your gut function, and making time to talk through whatever's going on in your life, delegating if you're overwhelmed, but making sure that you've got relaxing time for yourself every day, that you're massaging your tummy if you need to, you've got hot drinks to stimulate the muscles, plenty of magnesium in your system. You don't store magnesium in your body, so you have to take magnesium into your system every day. And if you find it difficult to go to the bathroom, then maybe doing some exercise first of all might help. But making sure that you at least open your bowels once a day is normal. Anything less than that is not. So you just need to bear that in mind. And if you do want any more information about gut function on the program, as well as looking at menopause and postmenopause and perimenopause, we're also looking a bit like the 5,000-mile service. So we're also looking at that so that you can get your gut back into normal function, because that's obviously all part of you, and it's part of the whole picture of making sure that you're in really good nutritional shape.